Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Rangers Review special afternoon briefing as we build up to Thursday's Europa League opener against Malmo in Sweden. Joshua has headed out to Sweden and he has touched down, landed safe and sound. How's it going, Joshua?
Going good, mate. Going good. Not too long a trip. Was up pretty early, so a bit sleep deprived. But apart from that, I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Busy day as
Excellent.
always. All things Rangers, and looking forward to Thursday. I think it's going to be a tough test. There's no doubt about it. As touched on earlier on, Malmo are in fine fettle at this moment in time. But Rangers on European nights, you don't tend to get too worried really when they take on European opposition. The Europa League has been good to Rangers in the last, ever since Steven Gerrard arrived. So let's hope that can continue. Lots to get through today. First of all, how's Malmo?
Yeah, mate, it was pretty rainy when I got here, Derek. But as I speak to you, as I logged on to our podcast, the sun has just started to come out. So see a comment there about the weather. It feels very similar to home, so there'll be no kind of climate excuses on Thursday night. But I think, as you say, obviously we'll get into it a bit. We've got some stuff on the website about it today as well. It's a difficult. Rangers have a difficult draw, don't they, in the Europa League? They have a really difficult draw. They've tended to perform well in Europe, kind of regardless of how they've performed domestically over the last number of years. I think that increasingly the domestic form has become the focus because, you know, when Rangers started to play well in Europe a few years ago, it was a novelty and it was new. The Europa League isn't new now. I guess the format's new. There's a few glamour ties coming up, but it's going to be a difficult start for them. I thought they were better against Dundee. I thought it was a pretty controlled performance all in all. But I think it's a pretty tough start away to the Swedish champions. And we'll be intrigued to see how they do, but lots of build-up to come before that.
Yeah, well, you've got a piece on the website this morning. You've been speaking to a Scottish coach who's certainly been helping Malmo recently in with regards to their domination of Swedish football. You can check out that piece in the link below this video, folks. But what can we expect on Thursday, do you reckon, Joshua?
Yeah, well, it's interesting for someone like me who, you know, is interested in boring football details or what I think are fun football details. But it's a really interesting story. I think it's a Scottish coach, Jamie Hamilton, who some people might know, who quite a known voice now on Twitter. But he, it's a difficult story to surmise, which is why we've done an article about it. But effectively, he, in seeking inspiration for what he does and how he coaches and what his interests are in, went looking for something a little bit different to what we see in every game. You know, you could tune into kind of any game in England, probably, Derek, and what Guardiola and others have done is really went down the pyramid, and obviously that's good. I know Bolton, the team you also cover, have had a few issues playing out from the back recently. But if you think there's generally two now predominant, there's a scale in football, coaches who are really strong on the positions that players have to be in at certain times, the belief being that to maximise their abilities, stay out wide, for example. If you're a winger, the ball will get to you, stretch the pitch, stay in these rigid structures, and that'll allow you to play better football. Whereas increasingly, in the term that Jamie's coined for this is relationism, there's been this almost opposite movement that suggests that rather than a coach getting the most out of their players by effectively instructing them what to do positionally, you give them a bit more positional freedom. And it's the relationships, it's the interactions, it's the spontaneous actions that then get you through a defence, as opposed to these kind of pre-programmed actions. And the now Malmo coach, Henrik Rydström, when he was preparing to take over Malmo, which was at the end of 2022, the season before he came into the club, they'd finished 7th. They just won the league last year in the final day of the season. But he was looking, when he joined Malmo, as any manager would do, what tactical setup do I want to employ, but why? What's the thinking behind it? What type of teams do I want to create? What type of tactical setup do I want to foster? He wanted to build stuff around his number 10, and he came across Jamie's work, which was reflecting a lot of the work that Fernando Diniz has done at Fluminense, who won the Copa Libertadores. How do you pronounce it?
Copa Libertadores or something.
Thank you very much. So it's a fascinating story about how those ideas were translated through him, and he's got the link to Scotland. He went over and he says he's an observer of Malmo, but he's definitely been an influence in their tactical setup. And they're quite an interesting team, Malmo, because they're somewhere between this. They've got elements of like a strict positional, maybe not strict, but elements of a normal positional team that you or I would probably recognise. And then suddenly, now and again, if you watch some of their games, they'll have 4 players crowding one side of the pitch, which obviously to our brains, having watched quite a similar style of football over the last number of years, right across football, we think, what are they doing there? Surely that is not the optimum way to break down a defence. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of that comes out. They're at home. They've not been in. I know you've got a video on the YouTube channel about Malmo today as well. They've not been in the best of form maybe the last couple of months compared to the start of their season, but still difficult test for Rangers going away from home. And it's going to be interesting to see how they do combat these kind of unique tactics that we don't really see that much if and when it comes out in Malmo style of play.
Yeah, they've got plenty of threats, don't they, Joshua? I mean, left winger is certainly one player that Rangers are going to need to be wary of. Anders Christensen in the number 10 role as well. They're a good side, and I said to Chris on the show this morning that I still have concerns about Rangers' right-hand side of the defence. I'd imagine Malmo will be looking to exploit that on Thursday.
Yeah. As mentioned, I mean, were you have concerns about the left side of the defence?
No, right.
Right, okay, right.
Left as well. I mean, Jeffrey's not playing, which is a real blow. But
of course, yeah. I mean, Chris and I actually forgot that after the game at the weekend. I imagine it'll be Sterling that goes into that left back slot because kind of who else goes in there. It's going to be interesting to see. So they lost a couple of players in the summer transfer window. Centre back Cornelius, I think it is, in the Nasi, who went to Strasbourg in France, who's a midfielder. Yeah. By all accounts, both pretty influential players for Ridstrom and how Malmo want to play. So there's been a little bit of an adaptation period. Christensen, as you say, is someone who a lot of the play centres around as that number 10, who, as we're discussing there, because Malmo maybe don't have in the final third as many pre-rehearsed attacking rhythms, and it's more about how the players interact, how the number 10 works, how those relationships form with other players. He's a really important player for them as well. And he actually had a heart issue last season, which meant that he missed a large chunk of it. Thankfully, he's fine now and he's back involved, but a pretty kind of traumatic event for Malmo last season as well. I believe that took place in training. It's hard to know where Rangers really are at, I would say, at the moment after the Old Firm game, because they've responded as well. They had 2 games since then, Dundee United away and Dundee at home. I can't think of if there's been a third. They've responded pretty well without a really tough test, because I think that Dundee United, their approach played into Rangers' hands for those first 20 minutes. And Dundee at home, Dundee weren't great. They're a difficult opponent, but it's a different level the Rangers are obviously going to face on Thursday night. Although, in saying that, I do think that one of Rangers' better performances off the ball was away at Dynamo Kyiv, when they were pretty aggressive off the ball, and that's what I think you might see them do on Thursday night, rather than sitting off and giving Malmo a bit of impetus with the ball, because we know they're strong in that area. I think you might see Clement's team be pretty aggressive from the start and try to gain control, as they did in that away game against Kyiv. But you're right. It's probably hard to know exactly what type of form Rangers come into this game in, because the Old Firm game was such a convincing defeat, and there hasn't been that level of test since. But they have reason to be confident in Europa League games because of their record over the last number of years. It is going to obviously be a difficult opponent to start the new group stage, though.
Yeah, some comments coming in. DJ Sooth, just on the left back situation, says who else? Robbie Fraser or Proper moves over one, and Balogun comes into the centre back position. I think Sterling's energy is needed in midfield, right flank, to protect Tav. I've said it before, I'd be throwing Robbie Fraser into this game, but I think it's probably likely that Dujon
don't happen.
Will start on the
left. Or Carson Weirjo. I think that's probably pretty likely as well. Yeah, I'd be surprised if Robin Proper plays at left back, but you never know. But I think it will be one of Carson Weirjo or Dujon Sterling. Dujon Sterling obviously came off at halftime against Dundee at the weekend, but one of those two players. Tavernier, as I think you and Chris spoke about on the show this morning, Clement has said he's going to rotate him, but that has not materialised as of yet. Doesn't look like it as things stand.
No, it certainly does not. Eric Botheim, William says is a player to watch, and asked Jonas Hansen, the Malmo journalist, in the video about him, because he's a player that was linked to Rangers in the past. and he speaks about him in the video, so do go and check it out. But they do have a number of players that can cause a bit of damage. It is a venue that Rangers have not enjoyed down the years. In fact, Sweden, I don't think, is a country Rangers have enjoyed down the years. I remember back in the day when Walter's team went and played IFK Gothenburg and get absolutely thumped 3-0 in the Champions League qualifier after spending a load of cash on quite exotic players that came in, but unfortunately they were humbled. I can't think of the last time Rangers went over to Sweden and won a game.
They obviously went there under Gerrard, which was then set up the Cholak game back at Ibrox against, that was Malmo, wasn't it? I'm not making that up. And
you beat 2-1.
Got beat 2-1. Stephen Davis scored, I think, in the last minute to kind of keep the game alive. And Rangers were in that position, not to remind people of it, but in that return leg where they were in, I think they'd levelled the tie and they were a man up going into that second half. And what might have been had they got through that second leg. Yeah.
But then again, sliding doors moment would Sevilla have happened if they'd got through.
True.
Rangers owe Malmo one, so let's hope they can do the business on Thursday. It will be interesting. What's Malmo like? You've not seen much of it, I'd imagine, Joshua. What's the plans this afternoon? Head out and do a bit of exploring?
A little bit, a bit of work, a bit of exploring. Not seen much of it. I don't think it's that big. It's obviously right next to Copenhagen, so it's a bit strange. You fly to Copenhagen and you get the train across the sea. I presume it's not a river, is it? But you fly into one country and then you're very quickly in the other. But it looks nice. I've heard the atmosphere, the home atmosphere is good. At Malmo games as well. I'm sure Rangers will bring a good number of fans over. So expecting a pretty big game on Thursday night. And obviously, when the Europa League draw was made because of how Rangers dropped out of the Champions League, there is a bit of an underwhelming nature to it. Not least because of how difficult that draw was. The 8 teams that they've drawn in this new format. You never know if they can get a good result in that first leg. I still think that domestic football will be what people care more about this season, purely because of where Rangers are and how they need to re-establish themselves as a force in the league. But if they're able to build a little bit of momentum in Europe, you never know. The question is that the squad's a bit leaner, and you're relying on the likes of Sterling and Tavernier and Casemiro, especially the base of midfield as well. Are we going to see Nico Raskin at one point? Clement needs to use his squad because of the amount of games he's going to have, and because especially at that number 6 position, especially I think in areas like right back where he said he's going to rotate. He's not light of options at right back, but he is in areas like the centre of midfield and arguably the centre of defence as well. And he's going to need to rotate, especially over the next couple of months. Yeah, because of course we've got Hibs on the horizon at Ibrox this coming Sunday. Incidentally, there was a comment yesterday which I never get round to, asking where Michael the announcer is. Message Michael yesterday, folks. He is back behind the mic on Sunday, so don't worry about that. As he has had some prior engagements at the weekend, which he had to take care of, which was why he wasn't at Ibrox. But he'll be back for the Hibs game and beyond. So. Good news on that front. Bluebells Are Blue says, need something off Malmo to have any chance of progression, in my opinion. Early days, of course, but this should be one we look to get some points on the board. Of course, a different league set up now. Just one big, massive standings board, really. And Rangers get a number of games coming up. The away matches, Joshua, looking at them on paper, I mean, Malmo there. Olympiacos, I don't think will be easy. Nice, I don't know too much about, but French side, you'd imagine they'll be of a good standard. And that's it. It's not one I'm Man United as well. Man United as well, which will be difficult. It is a difficult draw. The first 3 home games you've got before Tottenham, I think you have Lyon at home, you have the Romanian outfit at home, you have Tottenham at home, and one more game at home, which I can't remember either off the top of my head. Of course, the return. It is a difficult draw. I think Rangers, they definitely need something in one of these first 2 games, because the risk is with this Europa League draw, if it quickly becomes obvious, now you might get into the playoff section right there, but if it quickly becomes obvious that you're not going to have a good Europa League, it could probably be quite a long 8 games. I think the Tottenham game at home is going to be difficult, and Rangers want to go into that in a good vein of form because of how difficult that game's going to be away against Man United. Similarly, they need something in one of these first 2 games. Absolutely, I don't think there's any doubt about that. And if they could get something away at Malmo, then that would give them a little bit of a confidence boost. Hibs at home then is a very big game as well, to try and build a little bit more momentum in the league.
Yeah. Johnny gets in touch. He says Sweden looks nice troops. That's so Johnny watching the show. Good afternoon.
Signing off.
Yeah. So very much looking forward to it. The press conference is tomorrow evening. Yeah. So around about 6:30, 7:30 your time, I think, Joshua. So we'll have a video tomorrow night. I'd imagine. Is Johnny on tomorrow with your good self?
He will be, so people can look forward to that. But yeah, loads of coverage to come before and after the game as well. Obviously, an earlier kickoff on Thursday night. And I think as we build up to the game, especially tomorrow, we'll be having a little bit more of a look at some of these positions, like the midfield one. Nico Raskin is just the name that I keep coming back to when you're thinking of a player. When is he going to get his chance? What is that going to look like? Because Rangers need him. That number 6 position is so light, and I think Connor Barron's done well. I think it's a lot to rely on him over the course of the season. And there is an ongoing question at the moment about where Dujon Sterling's best position is and where he's going to spend his minutes playing this season. So yeah, lots of talking points to come over the next couple of days, and obviously full coverage for people at the game as well.
Yep. In other news, you may have seen over the weekend, our next live show has been confirmed. So I'll whack up the little logo here. So, myself and Joshua will be hot-footing it down to London town, as Mark Knopfler famously said, and we'll be hosting a special evening with Mark Hateley at London's best bar, sports bar and beer place, the Volley. They have kindly invited us both down to stage an evening there, which I'm very much looking forward to. Mark is top drawer. I've been to a few nights with Mark before, and very much looking forward to this. Now, the night takes place on October the 16th, so next month, and tickets are available right now. The link below this video is what you can click on to go and get tickets for it. I know that there's a lot of London-based bears down there that I'm sure will be heading along, and if you fancy a bit of a jolly, then it'd be absolutely fantastic to see you there as well. Will it not, Joshua? Good to have another live show on the horizon.
Yes, yeah, looking forward to it. Really thankful that the guys at the Volley are having us down. You and I get the fun of going down there. We're not going to complain about it. So hopefully, I know we have some listeners down in London, so hopefully you get a chance to have a good night with some of them. It will be great to hear some of Mark's stories. I've not been to a night with him, so look forward to that. But there'll be a lot of different sections in the night. Obviously, the Volley. People who are in London, I'm sure will know about it. But really cool venue. There'll be football on after. I think it's the international week, isn't it? That we're yes. down. So there'll be some form of international football, and we'll have a Q&A. We'll have a Q&A with Mark. We'll have a little bit of a live podcast section where we're, I guess, reacting to whatever the Rangers news is of the moment. And given what the news cycle has been like this summer, Derek, then who knows what will have happened by just about this time next month. But yeah, lots of time on the night for a lot of different Rangers chat, and then looking back to some better days that you remember, and I don't because I wasn't born when Mark Cable was playing. So yeah, lots to get through, and we'll look forward to seeing whoever's there.
Yeah. How I love Mark Haley up front for Rangers right now. He was absolutely sensational. Right, before we go, just, of course, you were at the game at the weekend, Joshua. Pretty routine in the end. 3-0 win over Dundee. Talked this morning when I was on with Chris about team selection and Nadim Bayrami. He was playing on the left with Tom Lawrence in at number 10. He has been playing relatively well, Tom Lawrence, so I can understand the manager opting to go with that. But we want to see Bayrami at number 10, do we not?
Do you know, I watched the game back, what day is it today? Tuesday. I watched it back yesterday, and I thought that it was pretty good from Rangers all in. Again, it's a game you'd expect them to win, obviously. The only chances they really created, so I'm thinking of the save Butland makes one-on-one, the header Rangers concede, which kind of came from them overplaying a little bit and getting caught. I think it was a throw-in that eventually that cross came from, and then the double save from a corner. It was all kind of problems of their own making. On Bayrami and Lawrence, I actually think, and I don't know what you think about this, and people in the comment think as well. I tweeted this out yesterday. I think Rangers are changing a little bit under Clement, and they are becoming a little bit better in the build-up. last season, whether it was at Ibrox or away from home, they were pretty direct. Let's be honest, pretty direct. Seaman behind helped that a lot, but you did. It'll take a few more games for us to maybe get some stats to back this up. How many passes are they playing per sequence? What's their overall possession numbers? What's their pass accuracy? What you're seeing with Lawrence and Baramia, and I've not got a graph to illustrate that, but because Chefty, who is fastly becoming my favourite player to watch at Rangers, but because he's someone who can effectively be your left winger in possession, right? He can carry the ball, he can cross it, he gives you a lot of different options. The shape that you're starting to see Rangers have in possession is a little bit more akin to what I think Clement would have wanted, where you've got a natural fit on both sides, you've got wide options out wide, you've got a left footer on the right to allow you to play vertically. But Barami's actually moving. He moved inside to that number 10 position quite a lot, and Lawrence then moved deeper next to Barron. Last season, one of the big issues I thought Rangers had is that because they couldn't build up quite often, they were too reliant on going in behind opponents. And that was the same at Ibrox as well. And they've needed to adapt a little bit. And I think you're seeing them do that somewhat. Now, away at Dundee United the week before, we saw Rangers do that for the first 20 minutes and not the last 70 minutes. I can't remember the stat off the top of my head. Adam and I discussed it in the tactics show, but Rangers completed more passes in the opposition half in the first 20 minutes against Dundee United than they did in the remaining 70 minutes, which I think just shows you when Dundee United changed shape, when they went two up top. Obviously, Rangers had went a goal up as well, which maybe leads them to regress a little bit into themselves and not be as aggressive, but they couldn't dominate territory in the same way. So away from home, I still think there's a lot for them to do to improve their build-up. But at home, I think you're starting to see a little bit more control and a little bit more control in the centre. Tom Lawrence is at number 10, what we saw a lot of last season. And I think Todd Cantwell actually alluded to this when he was speaking to Sky Sports about the tactical differences between him and Clement. Clement last season wanted his number 10 to stay close to the striker all the time, to pick up second balls because Rangers were going direct quite often to the front man. If you look at where Tom Lawrence has been picking the ball up in the last couple of games, he's not playing as now number 10. He's kind of dropping into that left side of space quite often and allowing then, whether it was Cortez to help create that goal against Dundee United or Barami in the pockets where we saw him quite often against Dundee at home the other day, they're then coming in to occupy that space to kind of give Rangers a bit of an overload in the middle. And Barami actually should have 2 assists because Dessers is really unlucky with his first goal, shouldn't he? And that's on his weaker foot. So I think that would be the encouragement. That's what stood out to me from the first 60, 70 minutes we saw of him. His final ball was really good. And you would expect that when he's starting in his favoured position, right now he's kind of drifting into his favoured position, isn't he? And he's still out wide at points. He's clearly not someone who's going to do his best work when he's pinned to the touchline and he's going one-on-one all the time. But even when he was out wide, we did see that moving into that left space as well, he was able to put in a good couple of final balls, on his weaker left foot as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple of points before we wrap up. Blazing Blue 72 says, best on the games now. Lawrence is showing form, working hard too. He is. Listen, I can understand why the manager is gone for him in that number 10 role. It will be interesting with Hibernian on the horizon if he will look at some squad rotation with regards to that. They've got Oscar Cortez as an option on the left as well. So it will be intriguing to see what the manager has to say. We'll get an idea tomorrow anyway of who is available for that game. One player who won't be available, of course, is Yanis Haji, but fresh from scoring 2 goals against Huddersfield for the B team this afternoon. Chick says Haji for another 2 goals and an assist today. The boy showing brilliant professionalism and commitment. Baffling why we don't involve him. The questions will arise once again. The Rangers B team defeating Huddersfield by 3-2. Finlay Curtis also on the score sheet. Interestingly, there was a trialist playing at the back for Rangers. I'm not too sure who that is. But yeah, Haji, listen, I think he's just keeping himself ticking over by playing for the B team. Joshua, but I'm not going to lie, I would have liked him to be in consideration. He would have been in consideration for a starting spot, but he is not.
Yeah, one of the byproducts of the summer. I don't think there's anything that new to say about it at the moment. Obviously, the news broke of the fact that there was that wage clause. Obviously, Haji had spoken earlier in the summer about potentially trying to find another club as well. So it's not been a completely one-sided situation. That number 10 spot, I don't think he is going to, again, we're repeating ourselves somewhat here. I don't think he's going to go and be Rangers long-term number 10. You can understand when people are looking at a squad that is slightly light in some areas, that they might say, well, why is he not in there? If some sort of negotiation, if some sort of compromise can be had. But what I would also say is we know Rangers have reduced the wage bill significantly. That had to happen, and to do that, they have to make long-term decisions. And clearly what they're trying to do with this Haji situation is make a long-term decision rather than just thinking for the short term. It's a balance. I don't think the window was perfect. I do think they've made good additions. If you're talking about the likes of Chefty over Barisic and Barron over Lundstrom, and even, we've not seen much of Igaman, but Igaman is I think an upgrade on Roof by the fact that he can give you minutes. Roof was on a big wage for not playing minutes for the last 2 seasons.
So they've had, club, isn't he?
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And they've had to think long term. And this situation is, I think, a bit of a byproduct of that. Tom Lawrence, will he play tomorrow night in that number 10 spot? I don't think so. I think Clement, you'll see him go for a little bit more of an industrial midfield 3. Maybe you'll see Oscar Cortez start from the left-hand side as well. But yeah, I don't think that Rangers have become an extraordinary side in possession, Derek, but I do think that you're seeing them adapt a little bit more to opponents and become a little bit less direct. And I actually think that Robin Propper is helping that as well. Alongside John Souttar, Propper has looked a little bit slow in moments, I think it's fair to say. And there's an argument that he needs pace alongside him. But what him and Souttar give you alongside one another for me is that they're both comfortable inviting pressure. Little things like you'll see them put their soul on the ball and they don't rush it. Propper's obviously right-footed. You've seen him play a little bit on his left-hand side as well. But Rangers have needed that because of how they build play, because they need to, I think, kind of provoke the opposition to move on to them play into or play around space. They need 2 centre-halves who are comfortable inviting pressure on the ball. And I think that Souttar and Propper, while there's weaknesses, especially with pace in that combination as a back 2, they are both players who are comfortable on the ball and are comfortable to take risks on the ball. I'm sure at one point in the season that risk will work against Rangers and they will concede the goal just based on the last couple of games we've seen against Dundee and Dundee United. There's been a few minutes and a few moments where they have overplayed, but over the course you need to do that to try and create space to play through.
Yeah, interesting chat as ever. I think we'll wrap up there, going and explore Sweden and see what it has got to offer. Yeah, absolutely excellent stuff. Just a heads up, folks, those of you that are extra members, quick half-hour break, then I'll be back on for our weekly Q&A show. So I know that a number of you have posted questions already. So if you want to join me back at 2 p.m, then we'll get through as many of your Rangers questions as possible. Right, we'll be back again tomorrow, myself and Joshua. So if I don't speak to you this afternoon, then we'll see you all tomorrow morning. Bye for now.